The Anasazi. When the Navajo settled in the Southwest around 81,000, they found the remains of a rich artistic culture. Sensing the long history that these remains represented, they called the people who left them the Ancient Ones, the Anasazi. The Four Corners region of the Southwest, where Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona meet, it's a beautiful land where wind has sculpted the rocks into spectacular shapes and rivers have carved deep canyons. Rocks heavy with iron shine red in the sun. But this stunning land is also harsh, with little rain and long, cold winters. The Anasazi lived in this harsh environment from about AD 100 to about AD 1300. The Anasazi began as hunters and gatherers. To collect the food that they gathered, they used straw, vines, and other plants to weave beautiful baskets. Some were covered with mud inside so that they could hold liquids. The two periods that stretch from the beginning of the Anasazi to about AD 700 were called the basket weavers after this major part of their culture. During these centuries, the Anasazi adopted farming, at first raising corn and squash, and later adding beans. They lived in round homes made of logs situated over pits that were dug into the ground. They also adopted pottery making from neighboring tribal groups. Anasazi pots with their stark geometric designs are treasured today. Around 700, the Anasazi began a new way of life, entering the four Pueblo periods of their culture. They continued to use dome structures built over pits, but for spiritual uses, not as homes. These structures came to be called kiva by the Hopi, a group that is descended from the Anasazi. For living space, the Anasazi began to make homes that were built above ground. At first, their stone and mud buildings housed just one family. Later, they joined rooms and added levels to create towns that held hundreds of people. The wooden roof of one dwelling formed a yard for the unit on the next level. The first towns were built on top of flat mesas, such as Pueblo Bonita in the Chaco Culture National Historic Park in New Mexico, which had about 800 rooms. From 1000 to 1300, the Anasazi culture was at its peak. Some towns were still built on mesas. Mesa Verde National Park in Colorado is one of them. More, however, were built in hard-to-reach cliffs high above canyon walls, as seen as Canyon del Chelly National Monument in Arizona. Experts think that the Anasazi built these cliff towns to protect themselves from nomadic groups threatening them at that time. Anasazi cult society had unique features. Other native cultures with intensive farming and large-scale building had centralized governments. The Anasazi did not. Anasazi women enjoyed higher status than was the case for women in many other Native American cultures. As the people began settling in pueblos, they clustered in clans that joined mothers and the families of their married daughters in nearby homes. Around 1300, the Anasazi drifted away from their settlements. Studying tree rings from the time period, scientists have found that severe drought struck the area for more than a decade in the late 1200s. Groups newly arrived on the scene posed a threat and strained the area's meager resources. Although they departed from the scene, the ancient ones did have an impact. Their style of building homes was adopted by their Pueblo descendants. And then when the Spanish came to the Southwest, they named these people Pueblo, after their word for town. And that concludes this portion of the podcast. Now, if you want or are interested in extra credit, all you need to do is answer these 3 questions. And I'll give you the due date for these questions at a later time. Here are the questions. Number 1. What caused the Anasazi to leave their area? Number 2. In what ways does the article confirm the Anasazi's rich artistic culture? And finally, number 3. What provides evidence of the interest in Anasazi culture today? Real simple, yeah? Hey, extra credit points, always good to have. Go for it.